Which side are you on? Which side are you on? We'll fight against Josh. We'll fight Elon Musk. No Elon's kept within our walls. We'll fight from dawn to dusk. Oh, which side are you on? Which side are you on? Tell me which side are.
Wow, Nick, that was painful, man.
I knew it was coming. I've seen it like 30 times, and I was just like, man, why did I pick this thing? It's so bad.
Yeah, everyone, you can blame Nick for that. But so we are here tonight without Anthony, which after last weekend, man, it is a nice break, let me tell you. But Anthony is out of town skiing with the family. So we decided to just hop on, and I was going to let the Zoomers talk tonight. But
bad idea, bro. That's a
I don't know.
idea.
We'll see.
This is going to go very poorly.
I don't know. It can't be as bad as the New Year show, right, Nick?
Oh, can't be worse than that, honestly. Honestly, I think that the best Anthony ones is when he's had like 4 or 5 drinks, and then he comes on and he just unburdens on live air. It's just great.
Oh man, I still have not watched that show, nor will I ever probably. But okay, so let's get some stuff out of the way first. So everyone, please please subscribe. If we continue at this pace, we'll hit 20,000 subs in like 2 weeks, Nick.
Hey, let's go.
Yeah, so please like and subscribe. Share it if you can. We have a couple of actual sponsor related things. So if you didn't see the last show, we actually have a sponsor, and actually we have 2 sponsors. So our first sponsor is Requisite Cellars. They are a winery, family owned, Catholic, like actually Catholic winery out of Washington State. They do big, bold red wines, which is perfect for Anthony because the only phrase he actually knows in Italian is "give us another bottle of red wine." And I got to hear him. I heard him say that this last weekend a few times. So check out Requisite Cellars. The link is in the description. I've tried two of the wines they offered, the Cab and the Pinot Petit Verdot, and they're both very good.
That'd be interesting to try. I'm not even a huge wine guy, but I'd at least give it a try.
They're good to buy and give to your priest or something, right?
Yeah,
that's true.
Our second please
drink responsibly, 21 plus.
Thank you. That's actually good. Thank you.
I think you're like actually supposed to do that.
Probably are. You're right. Otherwise,
if you don't know by now, guys, you have to be over 21. I'm sorry to break all the Cradle Catholics' hearts, but you have to be over 21.
Look, I'm not saying that I would ever advertise any controlled substances, but if I did, then I would happen to know the regulations for advertising controlled substances. I'm not saying that I ever.
In Wisconsin, though, you could drink this in a bar with your parents.
I did know that.
For real.
Yeah.
You could do that in Texas, though, too. Like if
Really?
if the parent gives you alcohol, then you're good to go.
You can do it in California if the bar owner's cool.
If the bar owner's cool. Our
Speaking
second
of controlled substances, it goes to our second sponsor, Controlled Substances,
right?
Kind of.
So our second sponsor is Quest Pipe Company. They made the it's hard to see in my lighting, but they made pipes for the Canadian Martyrs Conference. So this is a Briar pipe. I have not smoked it yet. Tonight will be my first time. But the link is in the description for them as well. So please check them out. And then kind of another thing we're doing, we don't have it fully set up yet, but we have had lighters made with our logo.
Oh, sick.
Black and white, and they are torch lighters, so they're going to be great for cigars. But we're still working on getting that live. Okay. What about you guys? What's new with you guys? Anything you guys want to share for your channels or anything personal?
Only thing for my show is, although I don't even know if half of you guys will see it, if you guys are patrons over at Mass of the Ages, I did a really fun debate. It was like an hour and a half debate with Eric Sammons from Crisis Magazine over whether or not the 1988 consecrations by Archbishop Lefebvre should or should not have happened. And so I think they're only doing it for patrons, which is super lame because it was like a really cool debate, really cool discussion. Eric's a interesting guy to talk to. So maybe you guys can all raid their stuff and say, make it public and make it free, because then it'd be awesome. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was quite a bit of fun. I had to do like 2 months of research of reading all these works on the subject beforehand, but it was a lot of fun.
What about you, Thursday? Do you still want us to call you Thursday?
No, I kind of killed the pseudonym.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just go by my real name. It's Josiah. I actually have spent, I think, no joke, a work week's worth of time, 40 hours over the last 3 weeks, writing and making a video that is currently uploading to my channel. So
What's your channel?
literally, it's at Steuben Thursday on everything. So at Steuben Thursday, STEUBEN. I've had a couple people review it. They said that it's very good. So
Okay.
Very cool. Very cool. I honestly didn't know your name was Josiah, but this is also our first time actually like interacting and talking with each other. So
yeah, in
the
person.
more you
Yeah.
know, the more you know. Someone in the chat made a really funny joke at the beginning. It was like Thursday on a Thursday. Who writes this stuff? And yeah, very, very fitting.
Yeah, I used to go by that, but it's not especially good for your psyche to play a persona when it's your job to
Why
be
Thursday?
somebody else.
Why Thursday though? Why not like Friday or Monday?
Why Thursday? Because of The Man Who Was Thursday by G.K. Chesterton.
Oh, that's a good reason.
I'm unironically convinced that time travel is invented before I die, and that book is based on me.
Alrighty then.
Now I'm gonna have to read that book.
On to real news.
Well,
No.
but before we get to the actual topic, locals tonight is going to be funny stories from the conference, and there are some doozies with Anthony and others, so you'll want to check that out. But anyway, so I think it was either yesterday or the day before I saw Josiah. Did you tweet at me? I think
I did.
exactly.
I tweeted at you. I was just like, "Yo, you should have somebody with like nothing to lose on."
Which is interesting.
Which is just not true. I do have things to lose. I just don't care anymore.
You just don't care. So are you gonna burn everything down tonight with your take on the immigration stuff?
You know, I really doubt it. I doubt that my take on the immigration letter from Francis can be any more inflammatory than the fact that about 12 hours before Elon decided to pull the USCCB's funding, I brought it back up on Twitter, which is coincidental timing. Yeah, so I do know for a fact that one of the guys Elon was responding to when he posted that did see my original tweet on the USCCB's funding.
Really?
Yeah, I do know that for a fact.
That's
so
funny.
How exactly do you know that for a fact? Are you saying you know all the Zoomers at Doge?
No, so I have a friend who like sent the tweet to like a big group chat, I guess, and one of the people who ended up posting about it after me was in that group chat. So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about our opinions on it, because I'm actually really curious now on Josiah's opinion on it, because I think my opinion everybody can kind of already know because of who I am and my public stances on things. But I'm actually curious. Do we have a story, Rob? Like an actual like news clip story?
I don't. Yeah.
I have the actual just the PDF of the article pulled up with my annotations if you want.
Here,
sure, yeah. If you want, give unless the PDF has it, but give people like a 10,000 foot view of what we're talking about, because I think there's a lot of people who news is flying so fast these days, particularly with Doge, and depending on again like what site you're looking at, Doge is either cutting everything epically, or they are this unconstitutional far right, extremist yada 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 cult like thing. And so yeah, can you boil it down for the normies in the chat who have no clue really what this thing is about?
I'm sorry, are we talking about Doge? I thought we were talking about the immigration.
Well, Doge, but also how it's linked to the
Oh, okay.
immigration thing when it comes to
Oh,
the funding
okay.
and the USCCB and all that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the USCCB gets over half of their funding every year from migration and refugee grants, which they have in the past couple weeks, at least on one occasion, claimed was m being used for human trafficking, even though their public disclosure, document that they publish every year has a section for human trafficking, and it didn't include anything for at least 3 of the last 5 years, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, and one of them, it was, like, $30,000 in the scheme of, like, um, I wanna say 127,000,000. So, um, basically, this has been a thing that, Lepanto Institute has been on for a really long time. But what's happening is that and I do also want to say that I don't know where Nick and Rob fall on this, but my instinct is that the USCCB probably actually is using that money for refugees and for migration. It's just that they're probably defining refugee very loosely, and also that when they say that, they're leaving out the fact that that also necessarily includes the salaries for everybody running that, as well
Right.
as um, any any infrastructure they buy on as a result of that likely ends up, I think, if I understand correctly, ends up in their just general assets for land and like buildings owned.
Mhm.
Um, so while it is technically true that the USCCB is using all of that money for um, thank you, Enoch. It's technically true that the USCCB is using all that money for migration and refugees. I'm not like nobody. I don't think anybody. I've not seen anybody accusing them of outright lying and just like padding their own pockets and spending it on whatever. But the question is really just like, what are they? How are they defining refugee and migrant spending? And the fact that they're kind of coincidentally leaving out like the things that go along with running any charity, especially one the size of $130 million a year, which appears to be the approximate size of
Mhm.
their migration efforts currently. So that's what's happening there. And, you know, alongside that, you have these mass deportations with Tom Homan as the the border czar. I think he's been called the deportation czar by some of the legacy media, but I think that's just to try to scaremonger. Honestly, it is border czar. Although deportation czar is hilarious.
I'd take it as a badge of honor if I was him.
Yeah, that's true. Nicholas II could have been a deportation czar if he just deported Lenin. He wouldn't have. I'm sorry, that was.
Wow. Too soon? Maybe? I don't know.
I don't know. It's really dark. I free associated to like the czar deportation Lenin. So what's happening is the Trump administration is deportation czar does sound awesome, but I think the I do know that the actual title is border czar.
Yeah.
What's actually happening is that, from what I understand, and once again, this is just me. I'm gonna keep saying it because I want to be clear that like I'm not making any definitive claims unless I know for a fact. Um, from what I understand, the deportations currently are targeted at people who have another crime on top of migrating illegally.
Yeah.
However, due to many of these cities where these people are being released due to sanctuary laws, due to proximity alone, ICE is also using like for a basically like in an efficiency sake, they're like, well, we know the address of like, okay, we're gonna go in and get these five, you know, sex predators who also happen to be illegal, right? But also like within 20 minutes, we have 10, 15 other illegals whom we have the address of, right? Like we have the records of these people. We know where they are. So while we're there, we're going to pick up these people as well. That's what
Exactly.
I think that's what's if I'm like if I've been able it's once again with news media and Twitter having X as like a having X I'm at Camelback in Pennsylvania who said you guys can do a show without me. Uh
You did.
First Amendment that I believe so strongly in.
Yeah. I'm holding all of my rights in my hands. So I think it's a proximity thing, which is why it's also getting, I think I don't remember what the percentage is, but if I understand correctly, Twitter having Twitter as like you are the media now is great, but it also means you have to spend a lot more time parsing out what's actually happening. Because you just have people posting like the base level headlines for engagement and stuff, which is rather annoying. But anyway, so
Anthony.
from what I understand, what's that?
Engagement, nothing.
Yeah, engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so annoying.
Second job.
Second job. From
Mhm.
what I understand, basically there is a mass deportation effort underway, specifically currently targeted at people with another crime on top of migrating illegally. However, due to the fact that the concentration of these of illegals happens to be in big cities, along with the cities releasing them, um, you're also getting situations where they're getting just everybody in a
Yeah.
certain proximate area. And
Yeah,
at this point, this is where you get into um, the new press secretary whose name starts with a K. I think it's Caitlin. Gosh, I
Christy,
literally
no.
no,
No.
the new press sec.
Oh, the press second. Yeah, I forget her name. Yeah, blonde lady.
She's great.
Mm-hmm.
Press sec, like, can we? Okay, quick aside. Carolyn Levitt. Can we all agree? I know we want no women in the government. Can we agree though that the exception is the press secretary?
I think that is fairly fitting, actually.
Yeah, like the press secretary should be a woman, which is why Karine Jean-Pierre doesn't qualify. Anyway,
So true, though. Honestly,
they wanted to have Michelle do it, but once again, have to be a woman. So
Anthony, it is your wife's birthday. Get off of this.
you
it's
have two jobs
Anthony,
that
it's
you
your
work at.
wife's birthday, and you're on this stream, dude.
Do you know he made me do a show for one of my wife's birthdays? Forced me.
That's the
One
most
of your
Anthony thing of
wives?
all time. Make
Bro,
you
My
work
wife-
your-
over here. Bro's coming out as Mormon. Bro came out as Mormon. Spam the chat. Chat.
He just
Chat,
a
what do you
big
think?
old covenant respecter. That's all he is. That's like the perfect Mormon Twitter handle for like a polygamous Mormon. Old covenant respecter. Oh, brother.
It's my job to disrupt the show. Anyway,
You
so
do
if
that
it's
when you're
Anthony's
here.
job to disrupt the show, I'm gonna make it as hard on him as possible by just totally going full tism here. So then you get to the situation where you have Carolyn Levitt in doing her first press briefing where she gets asked it's in several different ways, are you deporting people who aren't criminals? And she keeps going, no, immigrating illegally is a crime. And you have that like 7 times in a row. And then I think it was 2 or 3 days after that, JD Vance was on it was on CBS, so it must have been
Yeah, he had that moment with.
Was it Meet the No,
I think
Meet
it
the
was
Press
Meet
is
the
NBC.
Press. Yeah, it was Meet
Is
the
Meet
Press.
the Press?
Yeah, I think it's CBS. CBS Meet the Press. But yeah, he goes on and he has that back.
I
and
don't
forth
really
with
care, Margaret.
Yeah, the Margaret meme was born, and then that's where like from there, that's whenever they start getting into the whole not necessarily there, but in later conversations with JD about the Order of Charity, and then that's
Yes.
when with today's stuff, Pope Francis comes out with another document after 4 years of silence from not talking to the Biden administration. Pope Francis decides to address his son in the faith, JD Vance, and Donald Trump.
Yes. And so he did it in a letter to the USCCB, although one of the paragraphs in here contains almost an exact quote from JD Vance in the interview, or in the Ordo Amoris interview, that is completely unattributed. So I don't want to, I don't want to go too zoomer on you guys, but that is a wicked sneak diss,
Dude, I'm genuinely,
Pope
you could
Francis
just
better
speak our
watch.
language.
Yeah, Pope Francis better watch out because Kendrick really doesn't like sneak dissing, and he's having a moment right now. So,
To be fair, I mean, it does seem like Pope Francis is only like actually able to like cite himself. he
Yes.
doesn't
He
seem
did
to ever
cite
cite
Pius the
anyone.
12th in this, which I noticed, and then I looked up the quotate. I looked up his quotation is there, but also he just kind of like ignores parts of that Pius the 12th document, which is
Yeah.
hilarious. So
I mean, Pius the 12th also says some things about the death penalty, but I doubt he'll cite that.
He also said some stuff about Latin and the liturgy, but I doubt he'll say anything about that. And also about religious liberty and a bunch of other interesting subjects that aren't going to
he
get.
also said some things about
Where are you going with this?
I was like, poor Rob looks so confused.
that's not me.
No, I know it's not.
I know who
Oh,
that is.
okay.
Yeah, I know who that is.
Second
Another
Chronicles
guy.
35, and he cleansed Jerusalem and Judea.
So here's
yes,
here's
yeah.
the question though, because it's like, so I mean,
my take on this is going to be really confusing.
yeah, like, do you support or not support, or do you have a
Are you going
like
the
a
Lofton
super nuanced
nuanced
take?
route?
I guess you could call it Lofton nuance, but it's not going to be nuance on the actual topic. It's going to be nuance on the reaction to it. So my concern with, and I haven't seen it other than I read a couple of Walsh's tweets, but my concern with the attitude being taken by, or the, maybe not so much the attitude, but like the approach being taken by a lot of the mainstream Catholics in media to this letter is that they are, rather than approaching it as, this is not definitive, like this isn't magisterial, and also like there are clear like logical contradictions within single sentences in it. So like this is just not like good teaching. It's there seems to be some level, and this is my concern as a Catholic social teaching guy, is that some of, like, for example, Walsh's opinions and the way he's approaching it is just that the Pope like should stay out of politics, or that like there's not like I worry that the current tack being taken by a lot of the Catholics in the right to talk about why this is wrong also undercuts things like John Paul II and Leo the 13th and Pius the 12th's social encyclicals, as well as, Caritas and Veritas, it's sitting right here, literally sitting right here. Caritas and Veritate. Like I worry. So I agree that this is awful, and I agree that it's completely politically motivated, and like it almost should just like the best response to it is just to like, if we weren't in a like media run state, go read The Total State by Orrin McIntyre. If we weren't in a media run state, I would almost say we should just ignore it and like move on and be like, that's weird. And but because we're in a media run state, we have to deal with it. We have to explain, especially to people who don't understand infallibility and that kind of thing, what is happening here.
Yeah.
But so I want to talk, like, I want to completely like be like, this is terrible. Like, I have no theological training. I don't do theological reading that much. I do spiritual reading, but like, I make YouTube videos for a living, and I am like, what is, like, I can figure out what's wrong in this. Like, this is not good.
No,
at the very least, even if you were to come down, I don't think you could like be as far to the crazy as James Martin. I think you, even if you agree with the conclusion Francis is coming to here, I don't think you can like justifiably claim that it's well written or that it makes sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, does that make like
yeah, grammatically it's
if
all over the place. Logical leaps are there, here, there, and everywhere. And as
well,
you
not
said, there's
just
contradictions
leaps,
in some.
like illegal status of some, like the rightly formed conscience cannot fail to make a critical judgment and express its disagreement with any measure that tacitly or explicitly defines the illegal status of some migrants with criminality.
Yeah.
Illegal status is the definition of criminality.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Like what is, like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, it's not, I want to like come at it and be like, no, this is terrible. But I also don't want to do it in a way that I'm seeing a lot. Like, I'm going to keep repeating it because it's important, because especially for like solving our economic and like the actual meaning of the common good. Like you can't undercut the authority of the church to teach on social issues. You cannot undercut that there is a such thing as social justice. And if you don't think so, stop watching Ben Shapiro. You're being poisoned. Um, like social justice is a real thing, and there are economic there are real economic problems, and the church has not only the right but the duty to teach on social issues like
Mhm.
this. Um, I mean, John Paul II called Centesimus Annus, it's either in Centesimus or Laborum, I mix them up all the time, but in one of them he says, quote, that it is, quote, a authentic exercise of the church's magisterial authority. So that like the church has to teach on social issues. So when people like Walsh or Homan come at this as like the Pope doesn't have any right to tell me how to run my country, instead of like, hey, the Pope isn't making sense here, right? Or like this Pope specifically isn't being logically consistent. Like there's a ton of other ways you can come at it. But the one way you
Yeah.
cannot come at this, like the one way that is completely off limits is the Catholic Church doesn't have a right to tell me how to run my country. Yes, it does. It's just one, not doing so in this case. That's not what this is because it's not authoritative. And two, it's like not doing so well, even if it were.
Yeah. So
So
your criticism is mainly, in particular, the right wing reaction is not a healthy and nuanced one where it recognizes the church has the right to teach us in the context of social life, right, social living, and then two, right, if we fall into this trap of thinking, I mean, it's just a very liberal, in the sense, a classical liberal trap of the church is over there, we're in our own country, don't tell us what to do, etc., etc. I mean, that's kind of what it
yes,
sounds
go
like.
read Before Church and State by Andrew Willard Jones. You know,
Yeah.
like there is no such thing as the private sphere. There is no such thing as the public sphere. There, like the one thing Francis does get right in this is it's like actually really well phrased. He's applying it poorly, but like it's um shoot, I can't find it. I had it highlighted.
And he has
Well,
so few good phrases, and we couldn't find it.
I know there was in
Pardon
here.
My favorite phrase of his starts with an F.
me.
That's
That's
my
the
favorite phrase.
oh,
In other words, the human person is not a mere individual, relatively expansive with some philanthropic feelings. Ironically, that seems to undercut the entire argument he's making, but it is really, really well phrased. Like people aren't just like individual economic units. You know, as Sam
yeah.
Hyde said, you can't make a Japanese person an Indian by boiling them. Um,
That opens up an interesting, fun can of worms that we might talk about in locals, but not
Um,
here.
am I not allowed to quote Sam Hyde doing
No, no,
post-IRC?
no, I'm
no,
fine
no,
with
no.
Sam Hyde.
Okay,
It's just
okay.
no. Yeah, the quote leads to some interesting places.
Okay.
Aaron's questions here is interesting in general, but specifically in this case, do we think that Francis actually wrote this document himself?
Who even
I,
knows? That's
so
the hard thing with when it
you
comes
want
to
to do
all
some
of these
crazy
things.
meta-analysis? Look,
Sure.
Stupich isn't smart, but he speaks English as a first language. This does not read as written by somebody who speaks English as a first language.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I agree with
You
that.
like
Yeah, I don't know.
like
I
if
just
it and I just say Supich as like a catch-all for an American cardinal, right? Like if it was to be like, oh, some American cardinal wrote this and told like asked Francis to sign it so they could undercut JD. It's like, are there any American cardinals who didn't speak English as a first language? Because this does not read like somebody like it's written, you know.
But my guess would have been Tuco.
Oh, it could have been
yeah.
Tuco. I meant like an American cardinal who didn't speak. Fernandez
Mm.
isn't American. That's what like that's the specific caveat. Because I think that
Yeah.
the question is like, is Francis writing like the popes don't write like half the stuff that they
No, they
sign.
Very
don't.
Like
true.
no pope has written half of the stuff that they've signed for like 2 centuries now. You
For
know
a
what I
good
mean?
amount of time, yeah. They're too
Like
busy.
Goulegrange wrote like encyclicals for like 4 popes. De Lubac wrote in one of the encyclicals for I think Paul the Sixth.
The
Like
Lubac.
popes don't write their own stuff. If Francis wrote this, I wouldn't be surprised, but like trying to figure out if a pope actually wrote something is, I don't know. To me, it's just so irrelevant. It's like, are we going to go back and figure out if like Mitbrendiger soon was written by like was actually written by the Pope, or like if it like what are we doing
Somebody
here?
will.
No, so
Somebody will.
I was
look
actually going to bring up that it wasn't really an
That's true,
encyclical, right?
Marcus.
Because it was specifically to the Germans. But like, so there is the two swords doctrine in the church, right? Where the church's competency is the spiritual, the state's competency is the temporal. But like you said, the church obviously does have the right and the authority to teach us, at least in a general sense, ways in which the temporal order should be run and organized.
Yeah, various moral principles that it can help
But-
guide people in that.
Right. But where does it cross the line from teaching, from giving us social teachings in a general sense to actually going outside of their competency and kind of invading the state's temporal sphere? Like, does this letter do that? Does a
Yes,
letter
it does.
like
I think
the
this
letter
one
to the
does.
Germans do it?
I don't. Oh,
question.
Mitbrendiger.
Yeah, because that was that was directed specifically, at the National Socialists. It wasn't so much even about specific or general church teachings,
was
like
more
further.
So I think there's a distinction, and this is a really fine, like small distinction, but I think it's really important. Mitbrendiger was condemning certain things. I think
Mhm.
this, while it purports to be condemning mass deportations, is actually prescribing a policy. Like it, and I don't want to be like one of these Steven Crowder uber Protestant types who's like, oh, the Pope's a communist, and like he has this opinion, and like it's terrible. Like I don't want to do this whole like. I think it's cringe when people like make everything about open borders, communism, and guns. Like there's okay,
Hey,
if that's all you can think
hey,
about.
leave the
Do you
guns
own a
alone.
gun, Josiah? Do you own a
Yeah,
gun?
I do. Yeah.
Then you should be ashamed of yourself for saying that, man. You betrayed your
I'm
whole
just saying there's
community right
more
there.
to politics than the tax
No,
code,
no.
your
It's
gun,
guns.
and
It's guns.
the border.
It is guns. I want the right to sit up on the wall with a beer and a gun, talking about how low my taxes are. That's what I
All right,
want.
Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin in Bizarro World over here.
You know what? I'm just gonna
I
leave.
like women and don't smoke weed.
Give me enough guns and I'll take care of the border. How about that?
That's what I'm saying. Just have
They're
Rob and
literally
I
thinking
patrol
about
down
that. They're
there.
doing letters of marque.
Oh, dude, that would be so sweet.
That'd be really
They,
sick,
like
actually.
Mike Lee actually proposed a bill for letters of marque
You have
yesterday.
Here's
Okay.
Here's the thing, but you have to be honest, at least in this sense, that so it's like all of my Protestant family that I talk to, and they consider to become Catholic. Of course, we've talked about it a zillion times on this show. They always say to me, "But your Pope is a communist." But it's understandable because think about this for a second. From like a normie out there, or even just for some of the people here inside of the church, it's like when it comes to left-wing causes, it's like, okay, abolish the death penalty, abolish laws that are against homosexuality on the civil level, right, inside of societies. We got this whole thing when it comes to immigration. While at the same time, there was a, quote, Catholic president in the office for 4 years, nothing was said to him outside of Biden.
I agree.
just
Yeah, no,
saying that he was
it's
a good
bad.
Catholic. And
I
then
think it's
on
bad.
top
I
of
think
that,
he's a bad pope. I'm not disagreeing with any of this.
yeah, no, I know, but
Okay,
I'm just
clipping
saying
that.
Yeah, just that one thing. He's a bad pope. But then it's like, yeah. On top of that, it's like, well, when it comes to stuff like climate change, Pope Francis seems to be very, very open and talk quite a bit about that. So my whole point is just like, all right, if we're wanting to win people over to the church, yeah, maybe they do have like a certain point. Like, I mean, so it's like whenever I read this document, here's my big issue with the document, aside from the contents. It was just ridiculous to me because I was like, look, I mean, now the fact that we have so much evidence from Doge, that's why I kind of led with that question that talks about Catholic charities and the amount of money that's being used to help funnel money to illegals. And then the bishops' conferences, which are going to continue to ask money. It's just like, how much of this in Pope Francis's minds or whomever's writing it? I mean, I'll just stick with Pope Francis because he's the guy who signs it. is really about, like, quote, taking care of migrants, and how much of it's really about money at the end of the day?
I think the USCCB, it's about money. I think Francis is about the principles. I think this is what he thinks. And the reason I think that is because, like, there is no, like, the benefit to Francis of the USCCB getting these grants is, like, so remote just so remote that it doesn't seem to me to be likely that he's super concerned about that. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but that's my instinct on it.
Yeah.
To a degree, but I don't know, because see, this is the thing. Like, Anthony brought this up a couple weeks ago. He did honestly a marvelous presentation. Anthony doesn't
Oof,
always, but he did a marvelous presentation when it came to this discussion.
He doesn't need that, right? His head's
It's okay.
big
I gotta
enough.
pat the guy on the back when he deserves it, because it's very rare, and when it comes around, it needs to be said. But you know, he was just brilliantly talked about, like, you know, it's interesting that all of the people that were targeted by both the church and the FBI in the Catholic context went to the Latin Mass. Now, without opening up the Latin Mass issue, I'm just talking about what was so interesting about that. He said, you know, how much of this is really government behind the scenes pressuring the Vatican into, hey, you need to condemn X, Y, and Z group because they're, you know, putting a stone, if you will, into the path of our agenda. I'm just curious on how much of this is the same, because it's like Pope Francis, we could assume, has these principles, like you say, but at the end of the day, is not the Roman pontiff also just a politician? You know,
I mean, he's a prince.
he's a prince, but he's also a politician, and politicians will do what they need to do, especially in the modern world with the UN. So this is partially why I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical. I'm like, how much of this does have to do with money, especially when the Vatican Bank is bankrupt? You know, I don't know.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to it. Yeah, I have no idea. I think to answer Rob's question on the difference here, this seems to be prescribing a specific policy. And like McBurney Sorge did not. It proscribed the policies of the National Socialists. This, while it seems to be us like claiming to, I'm not prescribing a policy. This line right here is there. Okay. This does not impede the development of a policy that regulates orderly and legal migration. However, this development cannot come about through the privilege of some and the sacrifice of others. Okay. The problem with that is that any policy will privilege some people and sacrifice other people.
Just
any policy,
Yeah.
even if it's open borders in an orderly fashion, right? Let's say it's
Mhm.
like anybody can come in, you just have to ask, right? And you just have to do it in order, which is actually effectively what the United States has right now. That's why legal immigration is a problem, like illegal. It's literally just like you have to ask and wait your turn in line. Like just wait your turn
Exactly.
in line and you will get it.
It's open borders slowly.
It's open
unless you're
borders
looking for a
slowly.
job at 7-Eleven.
Unless you're looking for a job at 7-Eleven or you're an Indian who happens to be a stripper. There were
Flip
multiple
that too,
strippers
Rob.
found in.
I know. I know there was.
I'm just saying.
Very popular in the Dallas Fort
The
Worth area.
only there is no policy at all, let alone one that like follows the catechism's guideline that, you know, the primary responsibility of the government is to its own citizens. Like, there's no policy at all. There's no immigration policy that doesn't privilege some people and sacrifice others. So
Yeah.
the only policy available within the principles being prescribed is open borders on demand, is no
Exactly.
borders. It's not open borders, it's no borders. Like, you think open borders is bad, wait till we get to no borders. Like there's a very, you know, open borders is terrible. It's literally, you know, there's a word that starts with R and ends with placement that
You can just say it, bro. We say it all the time.
I can. Okay, so look, open
Retarded?
borders is replacement migration. Okay, like you can't have, especially in you know, European Western countries, we have an active replacement migration situation happening. And if you think that's bad, wait till it's no borders, because right now it's open borders. It's just like you come in and you get whatever. No borders is like nothing. There is no way to have anything but chaos when that happens. And so the reason that I think this is crossing the line from I'm giving you principles like what John Paul does when he says like the church has no system to offer but lays forth her principles for by which, people in their time and place. This is in Sin Testimonies. I think it's 43. Like this is not that. This is not just laying out principles like what John Paul does with economics or Leo does with, labor and capital. This is very explicitly prescribing a policy.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
prescribing principles to build a policy around because the principles being prescribed only have one policy answer. You can't go, oh, you're free, like you're allowed to do it any way you want so long as you do it exactly the way I want you to. It's like that's not that's not how this works.
Not how it works. But I want to touch upon something you brought up because it's actually pretty interesting. It's in tandem with this whole thing. We've talked a lot of times on the show about Muslim migration in particular into Europe, right? And how the face of Europe is changing. It's really dire in Europe right now because it's like on the one hand, vast percentages of just native Europeans are atheistic, right? I mean, there's just no religion at all.
Yeah.
It's communism. If there is religion, it's going to be either a false religion or it's going to be a watered down version of the faith that's not actually the faith at all. So it's like you look at the statistics, as I often do. It's like in France, there's only 7% of French Catholics who believe that hell exists. Of those who claim to be Catholic, only 7%. So yeah, not necessarily a joyous springtime. But how this leads into this discussion is you see tons of Muslims coming into the States. You see, into the States, but into Europe. And in the States, you see large amounts of migration from all around the world. So if you can talk a little bit about, I guess, Josiah's perfect immigration policy when it comes to these things, because I think Europe right now is, they're having the dawn of, what do they call it? The mega movement, Make Europe Great Again movement that's kind of kicking off there when it comes to solving the immigration crisis. And so I'm just curious on what your thoughts are.
Mega is so much cooler than mega.
Yeah, but you do with what you got, with your work with, But the reason I bring this up is one, it's not really that controversial in my opinion. I think Gen Z circles, we've been talking about like no migration or no immigration for a while now, and it's time to just let that flower bloom here on YouTube and let the broader community know what our generation's been talking about for a while. So,
Do you want my perspective on my perfect immigration system?
Yeah, just like
for
Yeah,
America or for the West?
Let's say for both Europe and for the United States.
Nothing for the next 20 years.
That's
only 20. Okay.
Yeah, I was about to say you're a little liberal. I was going to say for like 100, but
I think, well, so you could get into like details, but like I think it should be literally nothing apart from one of the principles that the church does lay out in our social teaching, that like this is just a principle that you must integrate, but there's various ways to do it. Like when there is legitimate refugee problems, you need to, if you can, you can't just ignore it. You need to be doing something. If the only way is to bring them into richer countries, that's one thing, but that doesn't, the I don't want to sound libertarian, but there is something to be said for like the tax burden of these people that is the main problem. But also like if we were only taking in like okay, Joe Biden's government's estimation, the Joe Biden executive branch of the United States government claimed that 11 million people came into the country in the last 4 years. Okay?
yeah.
I stress Joe Biden because let's all be honest, do we think, yes or no, that they may have underestimated that a little?
It's probably 30, to be honest.
It is. There are multiple other conservative NGO sources that estimated at 30. The population of the United States of America census in 2020 was 337 million, which means we've brought in more than 10% of our population in people who are not paying taxes, using public services, and participating in our society, which contributes to a watering down of the culture,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Something I said in this video, that'll come out soon, hopefully. It's in 4K, so it's taking forever to upload. Look, man, you guys could have guessed that. It's me.
Yeah.
Uh, the is that you can't build a better tomorrow until you stop the destruction of today,
Exactly.
right? And like people always talk about, oh, I want a better society for my kids to grow up in. It's like, yeah, that's the entire motivation for like 90% of the things I do, like at any time. Like if I do a thing, there is a 90% chance at any time that it's in some way motivated by, I think this will ultimately result in, yeah, Pat Buchanan absolutely had it right. Everybody should have just like,
Absolute
do you
G.
know, John Doyle at one point, I don't know the exact quote, but he said, John Doyle one time said like, oh my gosh, I bumped my desk. My camera's going everywhere. John Doyle one time said that like America would have been saved if Pat Buchanan had won the presidency and Norm Macdonald had been given the Daily Show. Like,
So true.
like, America would unironically not like would just be fine. No, so I totally forget where I was. I need more Coke. Yeah.
Well, your whole point, yeah. Just, I mean, it's an interesting one because I've tried to have this conversation with lots of people, and I've thought about even writing a book on the subject. But I mean, everybody in their right mind wants a better tomorrow, right? I mean,
Oh yeah,
and
the kids
that's
thing.
why
Yeah.
that's why, like, again, as you said, like 90% of what you do is for that goal. I think when you're having any type of discussion when it comes to a country, you have to start with a very basic first question, which is, in our context, what is an American? So you have to just say, like, okay, what is an American and what is the goal or the purpose that we have as a society? And the fact that that question is controversial goes to show you how off the mark we are from where not only the founders would have wanted us, but former generations of Americans in general. That's the issue. We've been so, if you will, impregnated by communism, social Marxism inside of our public school systems, inside of the college systems, et cetera, for so long, media, that those questions become controversial. So I think you just have to start with those basic things. It's like, okay, if you're a European, whatever country you're in, whether you're Swiss or French or English, whatever, what is that, right? What is your country about? And then what is its goals? And unfortunately, we've just lost that pitfall. And because we've lost that goal, and we've ended up into a pitfall. And because we're in this pitfall, we can't even do what you're talking about, which is, again, 90% of what we like to doing, which is working for a better tomorrow for future generations, because we don't even have not only a homogenistic culture, we don't even have a homogenistic psyche or goal or mission of what we should be about as Americans.
Yeah, that's why Trump winning like he did is so encouraging.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if this is a thing that people realize, but the reason everybody's so pumped about Trump winning in such a landslide is because it means that for the first time in like 2 decades, maybe three, like the vast majority of America is just like on the same page and we're all trying to do the same thing. That's why that's so exciting. Um, yeah, I think you're right. Like the main thing you have to do, you have to decide what is an American.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to come to the correct answer, which is to totally reject the idea of the propositional nation. Um, and to establish a system like what the Israelites had, where if you come to Israel, you can be a member of our society, but you aren't an Israelite and you will never be, and your children might be, and your grandchildren probably will be, but like you're if you come to this country and you're living here. You're living here. I'm not talking about birthright
Yeah.
citizenship, birth tourism. I'm talking about like if you come to this country and you raise your kids here and you're contributing to society and like you aren't a citizen, but you should still be paying taxes. You should still be like, you know,
Doing your fair share of what you
doing
should
your
be
fair
doing
share
as a guest in
to
the nation.
contribute to the society. That is the actual biblical immigration system. You want to talk about biblical immigration system? It's like if you must come here, you can, but also you're not one of us.
Yeah.
Like You're not.
And every other
That's the
country
biblical
seems,
immigration system.
every other country every other country minus the Europeans and us seem to understand that mentality, right? So it's like, I mean, just common examples that
Well,
we'll
they
talk
understand
about
it.
all
They
the
just
time.
don't apply it to Europeans and to Americans.
No, exactly. It's an insane
They
double standard.
understand it because if you ask a European, like, hey, if you move to China, are you Chinese? They're like, no. It's like,
No, exactly,
if you move to
exactly.
Europe, are you European? Yes.
No, yeah. If you move to America, are you an American? Yes. That's the issue. You know, I always use Japan as an example. Japan has a very tight immigration system because they want to keep the culture homogenous, which is normal, right? It's like if any personal family unit has a culture or customs or family traditions that they do throughout the year, etc., right? They ideally want to keep that in, and they don't want those things to just be run amok willy-nilly. But as you said, yeah, it's fine pretty much for every culture that's not Caucasian. It just, once you're Caucasian, all of a sudden it becomes taboo. The only reason it's taboo, of course, is just because of the amount of Marxism inside of public education and media right here in the West, because it's just insane. Thankfully,
The
of course,
reason it's taboo is because the Church of Jesus Christ
of
grew
Latter-day
and
Saints.
flourished. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is majority white, and actually the reason anti-whiteness flourishes is because the media hates Jesus and they know all the Mormons are white. So
That made it all come together right there. That all makes
no,
sense.
but unironically, I say the Church of Jesus Christ. I mean because like the Catholic Church, and I'm not saying this is like necessarily like one-to-one. It had to have happened this way, but because it did happen such that the Catholic Church and Christianity is a European thing, like it flourished and was like Europe is the cradle of Christianity, and the demons hate Christianity. They hate the cradle of Christianity. That's what that is.
Yeah.
That's you know, extrapolate that from that what you will, but like let's just be honest, that's what it is. And yeah, this is I wonder, okay, give me 20 seconds because I need to take a Tylenol because I'm
Oh, go for
getting
it.
a headache.
I can definitely chat for 20
But when I
seconds.
come back, I want to I have a thought because I want to talk to you guys about a specific concept that I think is really useful in politics that nobody is using. So I'll be right back.
Okay.
No, I mean, these conversations, in my opinion, they're just very interesting to have because I think that, particularly here in America, we're so hyper individualistic as a society.
Yeah.
I mean, just from birth, that it takes time and lots of good questions for you to get to the point where you're actually asking yourself things like, okay, is America really just this landmass where everybody and their dog decides to do whatever they want, essentially, as long as they're not, hurting anybody, and then therefore that's an American? It's like, that's insane. Like, that's an insane mentality to have. It's like there's a moderate level of
Really
individualism.
unknown entirely in the history of the world before America.
No, exactly. And that's why I'm like, there's a healthy form of individualism, right? Where you don't just go with the machine. You're like, okay, no, I'm not just going to go insane. But then there's an unhealthy form, just like with, with groupthink. There can be a healthy groupthink and there can be an unhealthy groupthink. And so, yeah, I think that these conversations.
Am I allowed to drink?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, we
Okay.
have a.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We have a wine
sponsorship.
sponsorship.
Wine.
I
was up till
noticed
6 a.m. last night. I didn't go to bed till 6 a.m. this morning, and then 4 a.m. the night before, and haven't eaten today.
How
You really are a Zoomer. Jeez.
I don't even do that. I'm kind of more of an old man. Before you get into your thing, I have a question. How is Matt Fradd doing? I haven't talked to him since like the last time I was on the show, which was the only time I was on the show, which was 4 years ago.
Oh,
That's good.
Shoot.
That's good.
So,
He is in Florida now. They built the studio, got the studio built down there, so he's doing well. Wife's healthy, which is good. Everybody say prayers for his family. Yeah, he just did his Australian speaking tour. He had that video go viral.
yeah, that was awesome.
That was a good one. Yeah.
So yeah, he's doing well.
True, Matt. If Matt, you're ever listening, I'll come on and I'll serenade your entire audience with real American music.
I am a real man. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I'll sing that on the banjo. I don't know how that will work, but
We got to figure out what is a real American first, though, guys.
exactly.
What's a real American? A real American is somebody whose family has been in the country for at least 4 generations. Everybody else is an invader. You can stay.
Anthony, get the heck out of here.
Yeah, no, I'm serious. Like, I'm actually serious. I've told this to Matt. Matt actually agrees with me. Matt has like got his citizenship. He agrees with me on this.
I think
Not. I'm just kidding. I don't. He has said like he thinks he. You know.
I think a lot of people who have either immigrated here themselves legally or are the children of immigrants would probably say they agree with that as well.
Yeah.
Most immigrants, immigration opinions resemble Sarah. Frick, I can't think of her name. What's the chick who did a bunch of Sarah Silverman's opinions on offensive jokes? That's the
Sarah
opinions of.
Silverman.
Yeah, the you know what I'm talking about? Was that too deep? Did
Yeah,
that joke made sense, but it was very deep cut.
No, I got it. It was deep, but
Yeah.
no, it doesn't. No worries for me.
Okay, so are you guys familiar with the concept of an egregore? This is gonna scare Nick.
Yeah, I was
Because
gonna say-
Nick is gonna be like, I don't know if I like this, but follow me, okay?
All right, I'll give you a chance because I've not heard of this at all. No.
Does this
Okay.
need to be on locals?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not even a little. It's not like it's gonna scare him because like I'm gonna explain the first step of this, and Nick's gonna go, no, what? No. So an egregore is a concept in the occult. Here's the no, what? No.
Yep, I'm holding myself right there.
Hold on, let me call Ripperger.
An egregore is a concept in the occult, where a group of people in either physical or effective or digital proximity, the sum of their actions becomes its own being. Okay.
Okay.
That's the concept in the occult. Now, here's the thing. I know I'm seeing it, but here's the thing. That's obviously stupid, right? That's not a thing. But this concept actually, if you like pull a Levi, I'm not taking you out. I just took you out. You're fine. This concept, if you pull a Thomas Aquinas and you Christianize the pagan, right? You completely understand that what it is it's the humans being like, look at what we did, when it's actually the demons in like coming down, or angels, right? Like it's the preternatural or the supernatural interacting in such a way that it's like, hey, if you do, if it's demonic, it's like, oh, if I get all these people to do this thing that they think is just self-serving, we're not going to aliens. Aliens are demons. If I get them to all do, if I get, if all these people do this thing that they just think is self-serving, it has this other effect that none of them really see, but is like, yeah,
They're demons,
It's-
kind of the puppet masters, kind
right.
of. We all
There
think
is
we're
no
doing
super there is no super secret meeting of the Illuminati, but the Illuminati is probably a demon that like controls a bunch of people in power, and that's why the perception is that they're all working together, because they're all being made to work together without their knowing. And it's also
illuminated
true.
by the light of Lucifer.
That's also like the like the body of Christ is literally this. Like it's everybody doing, like, no man is an island. Everybody does the virtuous thing, creates a better society in the long run. Now that we're okay, are we good, Nick? I know that you
Yeah,
freaked out
we're
during the
good.
first half, but I needed to like. I think that the reason that I like to use this concept in politics, like the Christianized egregore, is because I think what it allows you to do is you can take, and this is especially useful for normies or like more mass consumption stuff. Like if you're having a one-on-one conversation, it's not super useful, but when it's for mass consumption or like when it's talking to normies, it allows you to use the concept of collective action without, especially normie conservatives. You can use the concept of collective action with a normie conservative Christian if you, bro's in the shot back there. If you use this, if you phrase it to them as like, hey, I agree. Like, I'm not saying just summoning demons on stream. All right, James Lindsay, chill out. I'm not Baptist. Only Baptists summon Catholic angels on stream. Josiah drug test right now. I'm on Adderall, caffeine, and nicotine. That's what you'll find in the drug test.
A lot of uppers.
I have
was about to
ADHD.
say,
I have
he's on
severe
a
ADHD.
he's on a Biden diet right now.
Joe Biden would die if he took the amount of uppers I take. My goal is now to get Rob to do a spit take. I didn't know that was a thing that was on the table I could do. Josiah actually looks like Joe Biden. All right. Well,
A little bit.
I'm trying to curse less, so screw you. No, I think this is useful because in mass consumption situations and when you're talking to normie conservatives, you can use the concept of collective action without like them turning off immediately and being like, no, everyone's an individual. Like, eh. So
Mhm.
the reason I bring this up is because I think that when you're talking about specifically mass migration and replacement migration, you need to have a concept of collective action of the elites, right? You need to be
Yeah.
able to talk about that as a thing. And that's why it's connected to the Christendom being the cradle of Christianity thing I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, within your
Yeah.
the concept itself makes sense because I mean, basically, in layman's terms, it's like ultimately at the end of the day, we'd all because Rob and I were just talking about this because we're born in the United States, we're inundated from a really really young age of just this hyper individualistic society, which hyper individualism, excuse me, which individualism in and of itself, a moderate form can be fine, right? Because like
Yeah, the problem with American politics is that the right wants to propose individual solutions to collective problems and the left wants to propose collective
exactly.
solutions to individual problems. That is the base level problem with the entirety of American politics. Like
No, exactly.
I think that every political conflict and everything that the Republicans get wrong and everything that the Democrats get wrong comes down to either proposing an individual solution to a collective problem or a collective solution to an individual problem. It's like one of those two every single time.
Yeah. Do you think, because here's a question for you that it builds upon my last one. Do you think that to be an American, you have to be in some form or fashion tied to like a European mindset or European ethnicity? Because my mentality is something along the lines of when you look at the United States of America and all of its founding documents, but also the founding philosophy schools and things, both the good, the bad, the ugly, they're all in some form or fashion tied to Europe. And looking at all of the old immigration policies, they definitely very much so favored Europeans. And so I'm just kind of curious, do you think that to be an American, there's an intrinsic link to Europe, or do you think that it doesn't? And the only reason I ask that is just because you said, 4 generations, etc. So like if 4 generations of, for instance, Ugandans immigrated to the United States 4 generations later, are they Americans or would you still say they're Ugandans? I'm just curious.
I think the answer is neither. Because 4 generations does include the African slaves. I think something that Tucker Carlson is really good at, and he's able to talk about a lot of these things without getting accused of. Because you have okay, so this is like a weird metapolitical slash meta-metapolitical analysis of interactions within the right wing online and in new media, but you have the people who are like, you're only American if you're white, and they talk about the historic American people. But when Tucker says it, he always makes sure to clarify that he's including the African slaves, right? And so that's how why Tucker's able to red pill a lot of people on a lot of these principles. I think that you have to. Can Josiah give us some girl advice? Find a cute one.
Find one that's
It does help.
biologically a girl nowadays.
I said cute.
Uh-huh.
I think it's something of neither and something of both. Um, the 4 generations thing, I just throw out like every time I say that I throw out like a number that's between like 3 and 6 or 3 and 7, you know. And I just say it because I want to be anything, to be any nationality, to be a citizen of any nation. And I want to be clear before I say this, that it's going to initially sound like blood and soil paganism. You have to be tied to the land in some way. And I'm not saying like saying it in a blood and soil way. What I'm saying is like, because the church's social teaching says that everything comes from the land, right? Everything is provided from the land. And the church teaches the common destination of all goods. That is a real church teaching. You cannot argue with that. It is perennially taught. And like That's one of the, when people talk about, here's a fun thing. When theologians talk about like things that get taught over and over again all the time and never get changed. And so even if it's not infallibly defined, it's definitely a thing you're required to believe. Common destination of all goods is one of them. You are required to believe that the purpose of all physical goods is to benefit all people. You can talk about what ways to do that. But anyway, because the common destination of goods is a church teaching and that everything comes from the land, you have to be tied to the place. It's not even the land, right? It's not even the soil. It's the place, because the place is where you live, right? And
and a lot of our culture is influenced by the region we're in.
yes, and somebody's asking, do I even own land? You're missing the point. That's why I'm saying it's about place, not so much soil, right? Like, I don't own a plot of land, but like my entire life revolves around Steubenville. I moved here specifically because this is the place I want my children to grow up one day, right? Like the it's not blood and soil because it's not about soil, it's about the place. It's about being tied to the place and doing life with people. Like you have to, and the problem, and here's where I'm going to lose your entire audience. The core problem with the question of American immigration is that America is a country that is too large to carry out Catholic social teaching by its size alone. It should not exist.
Yeah.
I am loyal to it because it is the country and place I was born in. That's what patriotism is. That's what Chesterton. But in principle, if we're just talking about pure theory principle, right? America is too large to carry out Catholic social teaching and have a government that carries out Catholic social teaching.
Especially with the form of government it has.
I don't think you could have any form of government that is just, that governs the landmass of America.
Yeah.
You could have a series of governments working together to benefit each other, but you cannot, that cannot. So, okay. Subsidiarity. This is subsidiarity, the like core principle of all Catholic social teaching, the core principle of all Catholic politics. I just got, speaking of Matt, somebody just texted me. The core, so subsidiarity is not federalism.
No.
Right? Federalism is that this thing exists and it's made up of all, like, it's not made up of all these parts, but all these parts, like, subsidiarity doesn't mean that the lowers are subsidiarities of the higher.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is something that the libertarians get right. Like, the libertarians are objectively right about this. If you are pulled over by your local sheriff and given a ticket, that is the federal government pointing a gun at you. And the reason you can know that is just by doing a simple thought experiment. Okay, the local sheriff tries to pull you over and you don't pull over. You take off. My camera just froze. Am I still here?
We can hear you.
Okay, hold on. No. Ow, I just got shocked.
He said the federal government pointing a gun at him, and then all of a sudden the camera goes off. He's getting shot. Mad frat, be running your mouth.
Josiah is not a gamer. I am a gamer. Okay, well, hold on. I'm gonna get my other camera and
you take your time. Take your time. I was thinking, Rob, this actually.
Let me.
Go for it.
I'm gonna just real quick. If your local sheriff lights you up and you don't pull over and you go to the next county, he's gonna call the state police. And if you leave the state police is gonna call the FBI. So the actual thing keeping you being pulled over is the federal government's threat of force, which means you can never be at peace. And the entire Catholic social teaching is founded on priority of peace, right? So if you are ever in a situation where, like, the reason that the libertarians are right about this is actually because it's not subsidiarity. For subsidiarity to be truly carried out, what that means is that the the uh what that means is that the higher authorities are dependent on the lower for their very existence. Um I don't know if that makes sense, but that's
No, it does make sense. It actually, I was gonna joke with Rob, just like big L, because it's like we're gonna transition over to locals probably pretty soon. But I was like, it's big L because it's like this conversation naturally leads into the show that you and I have wanted to do for forever. The Anthony, he just like, oh, this is boring. But yeah, the true history of the Civil War. Gotta have that conversation someday. We should invite people in the chat. Do you guys know? Oh, what's his name? His channel's the Pipe Cottage guy. You guys have had him on, Josiah.
I've had multiple people down at the conference say we should have him
Yeah,
on.
he's so cool. He's so cool. I'm just forgetting his name off the top of my head. But yeah, no, he'd be pretty cool to have. Cool. Do we want to transition over to locals? Talk about how, speaking of that conference, how you guys were had some interesting stories from there.
Before we do that, I guess while Josiah tries to get his there he goes. There he is.
All those Diet Cokes.
One of them's a Pabst.
He's doing the Trump diet right now. McDonald's and Diet Coke.
Why do you think your guys' generation finds it so much easier to just be real about this stuff than millennials, than especially boomers? Like even when Ant and I like bring it up or speak about it, like, and I know this is true for Ant as well, like we have to fight against the urge to like make it overly nuanced and make all these concessions to make sure we're not taken a certain way, and the boomers won't even touch it with the 20-foot pole. Why is it Zoomers can just say stuff like, we don't want any immigration at all?
That's his name, Alan. That's a really good question, Rob. That's a really good question. I think I can't speak for everybody, but I think it's just part of why the young right-wing youth, Gen Z youth, particularly men, we've just been so alienated, I think, in public conversation for a long time. And when you kind of just allow one piece to fall into place, you all start to like really go down the rabbit hole of questioning a lot of stuff. So it's an example. Maybe this is just the best way of saying it. If you grow up in a society in which tells you that you're toxic and privileged from birth, and that you are just like white men are the sole problem of existence of humanity, when you grow up in that world, you either do one of two things. You dye your hair while shaving half of it off, you get your body pierced, and you flagellate yourself, and you become a hyper woke cultist, because that's just what it is. Like, wokeism is just is just a cult. Or B, you kind of go down the other rabbit hole and you say, okay, like, no, this doesn't make any sense. I'm going to stick up for myself. And you start to question a lot of things. And so because you're questioning that person's statement, that authority person's statement that they're trying to throw upon you, you just start to see all authority and all narratives for what they are, which is just, these are narratives that have come down to us from various political time periods and for various political reasons. And you just don't want to put up with it. I think that's just a very basic way of saying it. Of course, you can get more detailed and nuanced into that. But I think that it's just like, after a certain amount of time, you're just like, yeah, why are we playing the game, or playing within the perimeters of how the boomers tell us that we should be like talking about these conversations? So as an example, like earlier, just saying like, yeah, why is it that it's like only Caucasian countries that like have this weird like double standard, but then like a certain country in the Middle East doesn't, or Japan doesn't, or something like that? Because you can apply the same logical standard to that, and then all of a sudden it flips. Or why is it, as an example, when you go into Wikipedia, you type in Black pride or gay pride or Asian pride, you find all of these wonderful things, but then you type in like white pride, and all of a sudden it's just like this hate monger thing. So I think it's just people seeing the insane double standards. They don't like being talked down to, and so therefore they actually just start to question things. And and just say, yeah, we're not going to obey these parameters. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's kind of the feeling that I get from it.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Okay, cool.
You still there, Josiah?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Poor Josiah, bro. You're just struggling with those cameras. All we heard was a shock, and then you disappeared. Everything went still. Whoa. Okay.
Wow, that was a big change.
Yeah, I was about to say
Now we can't hear you.
we can see you perfectly, but we can't hear you.
Ah, there we
Okay,
go. Hear me, right?
we got you.
Okay. I had to change from the webcam to the from the mirrorless to the webcam, so that means I had to turn on my actual lights because the sensor in this thing's tiny. So
Yeah.
What's your answer to Rob's question, just before we go over to locals?
the people who taught the boomers and the millennials and the Xers cared about them, and the people who taught the Gen Zers didn't care about them.
Ooh.
Society
Damn.
cared about youth. Society cared about children. Society believed in children. Like, for all the, like, believe in yourself, yada yada stuff, it's true. People believed in kids. People thought you could do better. By the time I was growing up, 15 years ago or whatever, wasn't the case. The education system was doomed from the start.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, it was at least the people in the education system liked children. They believed in the kids. They cared about them. They loved them as, one human ought to love another. By the time Nick and I were in the education system, especially white guys, they didn't care about us.
Yeah. I was even
Yeah.
private school, and I still had the same problem. Like, I went to a private school. I didn't go through I honestly survived a lot of the insanities that public school kids had to go through. But even in private school, I remember distinctly multiple times being in various liberal arts classes and the teachers getting up and somewhere in the lecture talking about how all of the problems of Western society or of the world in general can be traced back to white straight men. And this is in a Christian private school. So it's like this type of stuff is just part and parcel to growing up, I would say, over the last couple of decades. So
we have one question I want to get to.
Yeah.
Because they pay $20 for it.
Thank you, whomever.
Hold on. Before we get to that question, I want to get Bobby's comment in here. So Bobby is one of the guys I met in Charlotte. I knew him for 2 days, and he's also one of the guys who went to Italy with Anthony. And the guy's like my brother now, so it's crazy. But anyways, definition of base is something that's socially unpopular but correct nonetheless. You guys view being base as the default, so you'll say things without caring. Yeah?
There's some truth to that. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, but the question that they pay $20 to get to is do you guys like War on Beauty or Religious Hippie more?
Is there an actual feud going on? I didn't know.
Oh, they're trying to start one.
Oh, they're trying to start one.
They're trying to start somebody's trying to start a fight between the two of them.
You know that episode of South Park where Cartman's trying to start the race war? This is basically that.
No, I didn't. Once again, Gen Z didn't watch South Park.
You guys didn't watch South Park?
Yeah.
Nick, I understand you not watching South Park, but Josiah, really?
I grew up like non-denominational Protestant, dude. Like
I did too.
And we didn't have cable. And we didn't have cable. Like
we
didn't celebrate Halloween. Like
so true.
My favorite television show is MASH because the only show.
Let's go. Let's freaking go.
Let's go, Nick. Let's go.
Let's go. We are literally brothers.
I don't give a shit what you wanted to talk about in locals, Robs. We're just gonna talk about MASH.
So true.
We're just gonna talk about why MASH is the greatest show of all time.
It is literally the greatest show of all time.
It's objectively the best television show ever made. It's not. I'm not stating an opinion. I'm stating a fact.
No,
I totally agree. My
cheers
senior year
is up there.
My senior year, I literally drove to the original MASH site, right, to do pilgrimage and obeisance there, and it was amazing. Wonderful place.
So good. It's so good, dude. This is
Rob's like, oh, I'm screwed. I can't.
Meanwhile, Anthony was crashing rented cars at 15, rented someone else's name. Yeah.
To answer the question, I have no idea who War on Beauty is.
Yeah, I was about to say, is this like a channel name or is this a girl? Like,
It's
like,
a girl with like a multiple social media accounts called War on Beauty.
okay,
Amber
well,
had me blocked on Twitter at one point. I'm not blocked anymore, I don't think.
I'm definitely still blocked, thanks to Anthony.
Amber had me blocked
evangelical.
on Twitter.
Let's go is the Gen Z white boy version of Allahu Akbar.
Yes,
Dude,
that is true.
that is.
Yeah, no,
facts.
that's a common thing. Yeah. I don't know. Amber had me blocked.
I
for a
looked
while.
up this War on Beauty chick, and she kind of looks like the actress for that horrible Snow White movie. That's another thing.
Yeah, she kind of does. You're right.
Hollywood just, I mean, that's another thing that we could just even talk about. Like, Hollywood just disses on white people all the time. And that's kind of why Gen Z doesn't care, because it's like, look, take like the Peter Pan thing. I think like
Yeah.
the new Peter Pan thing isn't it like
Society, like even if society didn't actually care about white people in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, it appeared like it through the media, and it appeared
Yeah.
like we were hated in the media.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like the new Peter Pan. I can't even fully remember, but I think like the new Peter Pan, like the main character, Peter, is like a black girl. They're like doing everything different. It's like a black girl. No. This is what it was. Peter's a boy. I think he's a boy. But then
Wendy
like
is black.
Wendy's black. That's it. Yeah. Peter's a boy, but all of the Lost Boys like
There's
have to
no
do-
way they would have ever made Hook black.
No. They kept him
okay,
white,
so
of course.
here's the problem with making Wendy black is that
She's British.
well, that's not a problem.
So is
Have you
most of it.
seen apparently you haven't been on Twitter. Also somebody said liking MASH is boomer, and I will explain the phenomena of Gen Z guys who didn't have cable liking MASH in just a second. If you go read the original Peter Pan like story by Barry, like the reason that there were no adults is because Peter kills them when they start to grow up.
Wait, what?
Well, I mean, honestly, it makes sense
You
because
didn't know this?
He
No,
kills
no.
them?
I'm like 95% sure.
But I mean, it makes sense though, because like
I'm
if
gonna
you
open GPT.
go back and watch those movies, and you'll realize that Hook is the reasonable one.
Did they at least make the nanny dog a pit bull? Ah,
That's how they're getting around Peter killing the kids. The pit bull's just gonna eat them.
they're having the pit bull do it. Yeah, but except the pit bull wouldn't do it when they're old. They do it when they're toddlers.
I mean, you train it good enough, it'll recognize big snacks.
That is true. Okay, to answer that original person's $20 question, I don't care. But
Yeah, I don't care. I'm not answering that. There's no reason to get involved in women's drama, like
And just so you
guys
like
know,
willingly.
By the time you get off of this, there will be multiple tweets saying you both support War on Beauty. I guarantee it.
I don't have an opinion. If somebody tweets that,
If they tweet that, I mean, go for
look,
it. I don't care.
Look, one, I don't care. Two, like, if you think you're gonna get me on Twitter, my job is to be good at social media. Like, if I wanted to be better than you if I wanted to get you on social media, I would have gotten you already. So just think about that before you try to. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm just amorphously threatening everyone. Yeah.
Who are you, Israel?
Peter is depicted as forgetful and
Uzziah Sampson's option.
Damn, I can't. No comment. Peter is depicted as forgetful and somewhat callous. There's a line suggesting that when the Lost Boys grew up, Peter would thin them out.
I'm curious at what ages would he get rid of?
I don't know.
Peter Dr. Mangala over there is just wow.
Honestly, though, but like, I mean, if you look at most Disney movies, like the villains are usually like the Chads in the movies.
Like
As an
Gaston.
The more recent ones.
Well, I would even say
When
like even
Walt
the
was in
old ones.
charge, when Walt was in charge, the villains were villainous. There was other things happening, but they were villainous.
Yeah, but
There
I'm
were
like,
there were other illusions being made, shall we say?
that is fair. With Peter Pan, I always felt like Hook was the
Gastonism. There we go. That's a good Doyle reference.
It is a good one. I always felt like Hook was the right one because he was at least the adult in the room, and he realized children running around with weapons flying is probably not a good idea, and that's kind of sensible when you think.
Yeah.
about
Also, Peter was the one who cut his hand off.
Exactly. So it's like, why would people be mad at that? I mean, or it's just like in Aladdin, it's like Jafar, man. Like Jafar had a point. Like it was this fat sultan who was just selling off his daughter. And it's just like, no, make me the king. So I don't know. Disney's
also he was aristocratic. He was not in favor of, the yeah.
Exactly. This is why, Rob. This is why Gen Z doesn't care anymore, because we realize so much of what we grew up on was just pure propaganda.
Yeah.
It all started with Aladdin and Hook.
It was pure
I
propaganda.
mean,
Hold
to be
on.
fair, like
Speaking
I
of,
grew up with Red Dawn. Like
Mm.
talk about pure pop propaganda, but at least that was cool. Pure
Yeah,
propaganda, right?
At least it looks interesting.
yeah, Red Dawn is shot really well.
Oh, brother, oh, brother.
I mean, there is some good propaganda still. Like Sicario's only 10 years old.
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen Sicario?
No, I know.
Bro,
I
you
don't
need to
watch
watch it
movies
right now because it is the perfect moment for the movie for the current moment. I watched it the other night just to get hyped about massive deportation and going to war with the cartel.
So true. It's a good movie.
Josiah's on all
So
his
good.
uppers, just getting
I
hyped
will-
at Sicario.
Dude, at like 11 p.m. Yeah.
Dude, when you're
it's
single,
awesome.
what else are you gonna do at 11?
I'm not single. All
He's
right.
not single.
Anyway.
Oh, he's
He
not
is
single. There you go.
engaged.
Oh,
I'm
he's
not
engaged.
No,
I
I'm
thought
not.
you were engaged.
No.
So no one was
Anthony.
Anthony told you I was engaged.
Yes.
I wonder
You
how
see
he
what I
got that
deal with every
impression.
day.
That's funny.
Okay, guys, stop asking questions. Last one, then we're going to locals.
I don't care if they super chat us. I'll take the extra money. I don't get nothing from locals, so I don't care.
Do you guys agree that illegalizing birth control would 1, save the birth rate, 2, end justification for mass migration, and 3, get women out of the workplace?
I would say probably yes, because if we were to put a ban on contraception, all three of those things would logically flow from that.
Yeah, my one worry is yes, for portions of the population, no for other portions.
Elaborate, Josiah. Elaborate.
I will not.
We're
be
already cooking in
elaborating.
here.
I will
We're
not
already
be
cooking in
elaborating.
here.
That's what locals is for.
Everyone who needs to know what I said knows what I said. That's the definition of dog whistle. All right.
Oh man, oh man.
Oh yeah, here, Rob, can you play videos?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna send you a video on Twitter. Hold up, you're gonna be
Yeah.
real.
Oh boy.
I think you're gonna love this video. It's
That doesn't
great.
mean it's good for us to play.
I think we're fine.
Half the stuff.
It's nothing that you haven't said already tonight.
Okay, that's fair. I mean,
Watch it first, Rob.
It's VeggieTales, dude. How bad can it be? It's literally a VeggieTales clip. Don't watch it, just play it.
Is it a special edited cut of VeggieTales?
No, this is as it appeared in the television show. I did not modify this at all besides taking it out of the show. Like I took it out of the show as it appeared on TV. What's Josiah's opinion on co-sleeping? I am not married. I do not care.
Fair enough.
Fair
Okay,
enough.
here we go.
He needs your help. You must help save Israel.
We must help save Israel! We must help save Israel! We must help save Israel!
I'm so glad you sent me that because I'm gonna use that all the time on Twitter.
It's great. Isn't it great?
Oh, that is
You gotta
amazing.
love VeggieTales, though. It has a soft spot in the hearts of all those who are formal evangelicals.
Bro, it has a soft spot in the hearts of some Catholics. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, our
They were
parish
God's chosen
library
people. I bet they never did anything wrong.
I
had
actually
those
walked
VHSs.
in.
Wouldn't you?
I actually walked into a parish today, one of the local parishes around here, just for convenience, so I could go to and just do a holy hour. And as I was walking in, the priest was doing a homily, and literally as I'm walking in, he's saying, "The Jews are still God's chosen people," and I'm like, "Yep, we're clearly in two different worlds." It was very, very, very memic for sure.
Okay, let's go over to locals. Let me pull up the locals to give everyone the link real quick. because I want to talk about stuff that happened over the weekend.
What are we talking about?
You will
Just
see.
funny. Yeah.
Very interesting stuff. Well, and because this does have to do with, I will be talking a little bit about Jim Russell in this because there's some funny stuff about this, and Michael Lofton.
To be fair,
Lofton
I am personally done talking about Jim Russell.
No, we have one show left to do, Rob. That is Anthony's request. One full 2-hour stream.
That's fine. He can, but I'm done saying anything bad about him. That's enough for me.
Oh, I'm not going to say anything bad about him. I'm just going to comment on it all.
Hold on here. Do I have a video to end this thing with before we go over? Oh, I do.
The opening.
We're gonna play this video, which was sent by viewers of the show, and we'll go over to locals after that. Okay, so thank you for watching, everyone.
Favorite father and son. Every afternoon on your FYP, we'll be bringing the boom around the 3:15. We bring the boom so loud the whole earth shakes. With double chunk chocolate cookies and chicken bakes. Biceps and triceps bring the boom that everybody deserves. And we call him Big Justice, cause that's what he serves. We bring the happy